Hello everyone. It's time to check out some of these Compaq systems. Compaq was one of the first companies to successfully reverse engineer IBM's BIOS, and they'd even managed to beat IBM to market with the first system to feature the new Intel 386. And of course they'd become king of the clones throughout the 90s, so there's a good chance your first computer was a Compaq system. And we have three such systems here. Got a Compaq Presario 5460 tower there, a Presario 2240 desktop here, and a little Desk Pro. Alright, well, let's tear into these. Alright, I gotta start with the Presario tower. I just love the way this thing looks. Just looks like it's some kind of rocket or something, ready to launch you into the new millennium. It is unfortunately missing the cover for the power button. Luckily the switch is still in there, and it's still switching, so should still work fine. And we see we have a color matched zip drive. That pretty closely matches the color of the floppy drive and CD-ROM drive. It makes me think that that thing must have been factory. It's either that or somebody did a really good job at finding a almost exact color match. And we've got a fairly well preserved Windows 98 sticker. Looking at it straight on doesn't do much justice for the shape of this thing. So here's a semi-profile view. See, it's got all that mid to late 90s swoopiness. And it looks like these slots along the back of the faceplate are for air intake. That's pretty clever. Unfortunately, we do have some damage to the top of the case here. Something did a number on that paint. So this is definitely a candidate for repainting if I can figure out the color code. And having a look around the back, we can see it's an ATX system. It's got just about everything on board, with all that super convenient color coding. And even has USB. And we've got all the usual ports, PS2 keyboard and mouse ports, serial and parallel ports there, VGA and game port, and onboard sound. And of course we have the all-important dial-up modem there, and a mid-tower mounted power supply. And here's a good shot of that label. And apparently I'm about to be the first person to ever open this thing up. No warranty repairs for me. That means that zip drive must be factory original. And now, likely for the first time since it left the Compaq factory, let's get this thing open. Wow, that is not budging. Not budging at all. I definitely got all the screws out. Alright, gotta do some gentle prying. There we go. Oh, look at that, we got a build sheet here. You can see that zip drive is original, and it's got an AMD K6 too. It's interesting that that IDE cable clip is unclipped. I wonder if it either popped off from shock or if the person who assembled this thing just never clipped it back in. Alright, let's figure out how to get this power supply out of the way. It looks like it might swing out. Let's go ahead and take some of these screws loose. Now, let's see. Yeah, it just slides over and kind of flips up. I'm gonna have to disconnect it first. Okay, so that ATX power connector is behind this drive cage. There ain't no way I'm getting to that. So let's see what it takes to get that out of there. It's interesting that that hard drive screw is missing. Maybe I'm not the first person to be in this case. Alright, let's disconnect all these drives. Okay, so now I only see two screws that hold this drive cage in. So let's start with those. See how far we get. Now, can we just slide back? Aha. There we go. Alright, we're getting some access now. Okay, so now... There we go. Now, let's get that CD drive disconnected. Now, let's clear out this cable mess. Might as well get that CD audio cable out of there. And finally, we get some access. Let's check out our only peripheral card. And according to that build sheet, it's a 56K modem, a Lucent from 1996. And the build sheet also gave away the RAM specs, but let's check them out anyway. This must be the 64 meg module. Let's check out the next one. And they're both Micron sticks. Pretty standard PC100 sticks. Alright, let's knock some of that dust loose so that it doesn't go down into that ZIF socket. That heatsink is crusty dusty. Alright, now let's get it off. Man, that thermal pad has become thermal glue. I definitely don't want to pull up on it, because that could damage the socket. There we go. Yeah, that thermal pad is gone. Fan bearing is a little bit noisy. That's definitely going to need some oil. Alright, let's get the rest of that dust off of there. And don't worry, this is an anti-static brush. Alright, let's get that CPU out of there, because it needs to be cleaned up. It's hard to verify with all that thermal pad shmoo on it, but it is indeed an AMD K62. Nothing wrong with the pins at all. Alright, let's get these cleaned up. I've just got some IPA on a stiff bristle toothbrush. Wow, that stuff is fierce. I better let that heatsink soak. Good enough. Okay, I think the guitar pick is a better idea. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, that fan bearing sounds like crap. I haven't fixed up a fan bearing in a while. Let's just cut into the label. And now that we have bearing access, I'm just put a little drop of 3-in-1 oil in there. Now let's run it to let it work in. Sounds better already. Now clean off the excess with some IPA, and then seal it up with some Kapton tape. Let's just trim up the excess tape, and there we go. Alright, got a fresh thermal pad on that heatsink. I like to use thermal pads instead of paste on these larger CPUs, just because the larger surface area uses so much paste, and also the paste tends to make a mess on these larger CPUs. Alright, let's get that all back in there. Let's tie that back in its factory specified knot. And for sound, we've got an ESS Solo 1. I don't think we get FM synth with that chip, but it does have good DOS compatibility, which is all I want in life. Now let's get that battery replaced. I already tested it and it is super dead. And here's a look at that floppy drive. And it's a Samsung drive. Let's just wipe that off real fast. Looks like a single screw gets us in. Okay, looks like this just pulls off. Well, that's convenient. And it's actually pretty clean in there. Clean up those heads, of course. Pretty good, pretty good. And here's the zip drive, manufactured by iOmega, of course. Let's wipe that off. Now, zip drives have self-cleaning heads, and the heads actually retract inside, so there's really no way to clean them. However, I want to take this thing apart anyway and see how clean it is inside. Okay, well, we're actually really clean in there, too. And there you can see where the heads retract. They rub up against that little piece of felt, and that cleans them. And those heads are really fragile, so I am definitely leaving them alone. They're very similar to hard drive heads. And we don't even have to take the CD drive out in order to check it out. It's visible right through the top. And we have a light on, model LTN323, 32-speed drive, manufactured August 1999. And here's the hard drive, 8.4 gigabytes as foretold by the build sheet. Now, I used to have a drive just like this with this rubber bumper that surrounds the entire drive. And I guess that's just there for either vibration dampening or just trying to quiet it down a little. In fact, I think I still have that drive. Yeah, sure do. Except mine's an 80 gig drive, and this drive actually still works perfectly fine. And it's one of the few computer components from my teenage years that I still have. Alright, so that power supply is quite a unique form factor, and I definitely don't have any replacements. So I decided to open it up for enhanced explosion viewing. That way if something does blow up, I'll be able to see what. And I got the sacrificial hard drives connected as a dummy load, so let's see what this thing does. And it works! And we're pretty good on all voltages. Let's just give that 5 minutes. Alright, 5 explosion-free minutes later, we are good. Alright, I got that thing mostly dedusted, and now the usual disclaimer applies. Power supplies are incredibly dangerous, so don't go poking around inside one unless you know exactly what you're doing, because you'll probably die. Alright, got this thing back together, so let's go ahead and test it out. Power on. The hard drive sounds awfully ill. And we are posting. Yeah, that thing is awfully ill. Although it is booting. Let's see how far it gets. Seems like the head's getting stuck and unsticking itself. It is making it though. Well, for as sick as that thing is, I'm actually amazed that we got this far. Let's see if we get to the desktop. Let's not reboot right now. Sure. Let it be 1997 again. Actually, you know what? That might confuse the operating system. We'll go to Y2K. Keeps making the chime sound. What is that? Why does it keep chiming? Either way, I'm absolutely amazed that that hard drive made it through. Sounds like it's working fine now. Not a whole lot on the root directory. Let's see what it has installed. It's definitely the original Compaq image. Alright, we got Norton Antivirus on here. I feel so safe. Let's see, did they actually pay for WinZip? Of course not. We got 24 days left. I agree. Wow, I remember that interface. The weird zippy heart. Okay, I guess that chime sound is every time you close a window. Or most of the time. It's weird. Alright, let's see. This thing's probably loaded with personal data. And indeed it is. Looks like they were actually using AOL. Let's open that up. Give that hard drive something to click about. And yep, pretty well used. Alright, so it's definitely a realtor's computer. Got links to the MLS there. Let's see, what is Presario Treasures? Oh, it's a website. Looks like they were using AT&T also. Okay, well, we're not getting in there. Alright, well, let's see if the CD drive works. Opens right up. Just a little bit dusty in there. Clean that out. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Open back up. It's a touchy little thing. Okay, well, it spins up. And it's auto running. Alright, so that thing works. Let's close out of here. Let's explore. Yeah, works just fine. Okay, let's try the floppy drive. And it works! Awesome. Let's see if we can write to it. And indeed we can. Alright, how about the zip drive? Spins right up, and it automatically opened. So let's get Doom 1 copied over. Alright, working just fine. You know, in spite of all that click of death stuff in the 90s, I'm finding zip drives are actually really reliable. I've come across a lot of them in recent years and haven't found a single defective one. Maybe that's just survivorship bias. And if you've never seen an internal zip drive before, the activity LED is also the eject button. Okay, I'm a little bit surprised that that hard drive just self-recovered like that. So let's go ahead and shut this thing down. I'm going to boot it back up and see if it has that same conniption. Oh, it sounds like it already is. Let's shut down. Alright, I've had this thing shut down for about 5 minutes now. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it sounds like it's not getting stuck nearly as much now. Maybe it just needs some exercise. Okay, well, let's drop down to DOS and see what ScanDisk thinks of it. And it got stuck right in the middle there. Okay, well, no file system trouble. Let's do a surface scan. Wow, not a whole lot on this drive at all. Uh-oh, think we found a bad sector. Fix it. No undo. Yep, first bad sector. Let's see if we find any more. Alright, well, it looks like we're going to make it without any additional bad sectors. We've got impending hardware failure. Alright, let's give this hard drive some stress tests. See if we can push it over the edge. Well, at the very least, it'll be some good exercise for it. Okay, well, it survived HD motion. Well, let's see what it makes of SpeedSys. Okay, well, it survived that, and actually looks like it did pretty well performance-wise. And look at sneaky old AOL, putting a shortcut on my desktop without my consent. I barely even ran that setup disk. Alright, let's see what Doom sounds like on this sound card. Actually, doesn't sound too bad. And of course it's running great. being an AMD K62. My aim's not so great. Alright, well, no surprise, Doom runs great. Alright, let's shut this thing down. Well, despite a slightly tired hard drive, got a perfectly functional system here. I think with a little more runtime it'll get through that head sticking problem, and I think I can forgive one bad sector. It's not like I'm storing mission critical data on these things. Let's move on to the next system. Alright, next system is this adorable little Desk Pro. This thing is tiny, but it's definitely got some weight to it. Can't wait to see what's inside. See, we're badged as an Intel Celeron, and badged for Windows 2000 and NT4, and we got a floppy drive bay molded into the faceplate. Hopefully that drive works, or is at least generic enough to find a replacement. And here's the back side of the system. Interestingly enough, it has this little solenoid dangling out of the back of it. That makes me think it must have been part of a POS system. Maybe this is the solenoid for the cash register drawer or something. I'm very curious to see how that's hooked up in there. Though I'm very curious to know why they would need an auxiliary sound card for a POS system. This system has onboard sound. And we've got our usual complement of ports. Got a parallel port here. It's got an onboard NIC. That's interesting. Got a regular old 9-pin serial port there, USB, onboard VGA, and our PS2 keyboard and mouse ports. Although it's not clear which is which. I'm guessing that back plate that's missing would have contained that information. Top side of the machine has a pretty well abused Windows 2000 COA sticker. Luckily the product key is still legible. If I roll this folded piece over, you see it's Windows 2000 Professional for 1 to 2 CPUs. And we've got some damage to the paint here, unfortunately. Alright, let's open this thing up. So there's no screws on the back of this thing that seem to be involved with opening the case. It does have these little tabs here on both sides. It looks like they push in. Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, there we go. Looks like we got a little case intrusion detection switch there. That's interesting. Usually I only see that on servers. This thing is so itty bitty. These two drives are taking up most of the space. And it looks like we have a Compaq original 48-speed CD-ROM drive made by Samsung. And this hard drive also looks like a Compaq original, 10GB max store. I sure hope that thing works because I'm very curious to see what kind of software this thing was running, if it was part of a POS system. Got some weird shielding over these peripheral cards. I don't see how to take that out. There's no screws or anything. Looks like this entire thing comes out as a unit. Yeah, it sure does. Ooh, the power supply moved. Now that's interesting. It's got a PCI riser built in this little unit here. So let me dig that sound card out and see what it is. And it's a creative card. Model CT4740. Year marked as 1999. Pretty dusty. It sure looks like an eSonic card. I think this might have been after the creative eSonic acquisition. Let's put that to the side. And not much to see underneath of that. Although that connector there definitely got whacked at some point. Looks like I should just be able to push it back down. That's awfully stabby. I'm gonna have to use a tool for that. Yeah, it looks like all the interesting stuff is beneath these drives. So let's see what it takes to get those out of there. It's got these very convenient pull tabs for the IDE cables. Sure like that. Alright, this looks like a tool list design. Looks like we lift up on this tab here. Yeah, there we go. Hard drive looks pretty clean underneath. Let's put it to the side. Now I'm pretty sure this power supply is going to give way when I take that CD-ROM drive out. Let's see, how is this? Okay, so that flips up there. Kinda. Huh, that solenoid connects directly to the motherboard. That's interesting. I guess that's a factory spec feature connector or something. Very interesting. Let's just pull that out of there so it's not sitting there dangling. I'm just going to set the power supply kind of sort of on top there so it stays out of the way. Now, how on earth does this come out? Oh, the entire thing flips up. Well, that's convenient. Gotta love enterprise-grade hardware. Super simple serviceability. Alright, might as well get that floppy drive disconnected. Ooh, that IDE cable is stuck on with some kind of goo. Yeah, it's got double stick tape stuck on there. Guess I never intended that to be replaced, so I'm just gonna leave that on there. Let's get the rest of these cables out of here. And that's interesting, both the floppy drives and the IDE cables are at a right angle. I guess they made every space consideration in this thing. Now for drive removal, looks like we got these tabs here that move out of the way. Oh, that's not working too well. At least not for the CD-ROM drive. Oh, there we go. It was just a little bit stuck. And this thing is dusty. It definitely has a lot of hours on it. Alright, now, floppy drive's turn. And there we go. Compaq original, of course. Sure does look like a Compaq special. Hopefully it works. We'll just have to give it some cleaning up. Ah, this power supply uses one of those 14-pin ATX connectors. Boy, is it stuck on there. Well, that took some effort. I'm not sure if my power supply tester supports these connectors. Gonna have to test it the old-fashioned way. Alright, let's get this power supply out of here. There sure isn't much holding this motherboard in. Thing is just flopping around in there. In fact, it looks like the whole thing's ready to just pull out. Yeah, there we go. Man, this thing is dusty. Let's sweep some of that off. Oh, that heatsink has so much dust in it. That fan bearing's definitely seen better days. Let's go ahead and get that off of there. Oh, it's not a Celeron. That's a Pentium 3. This thing's been upgraded. 667 MHz Intel Pentium 3 with 256 kilobytes of cache and 133 MHz front side bus. That is a very interesting cooler. It's basically all sheet metal. Let's get that out of there. Yeah, that thermal paste is definitely gone. And all the pins look good. Alright, let's check out that RAM. And in true Kingston fashion, they don't make the capacity very obvious. Looks like it might be a 256 meg stick. Let's check out the other one. And that is an identical stick. And I tested that battery and it is of course quite dead. So let's go ahead and get that out of there. Now that's an interesting little Easter egg. They have a little bike printed there next to the floppy connector. And it looks like that's actually made out of copper. Very interesting. And there's that bike again on the silk screening. I didn't think Compaq was so playful. Alright, let's try to set that connector back down. I'm guessing it's a serial port. Or a flying serial port. Oh, that heatsink is nasty. Couldn't have been much air flowing through this. Alright, everything's cleaned, oiled, ready to go. Yeah, that floppy drive's pretty gross. Not bad, not bad. And as I always do with the strange power supply, got it cracked open so I can do Firewatch. Found some sketchy, potentially unreliable pinouts on the internet, because apparently that's a special Compaq plug, so let's see what happens. Alright, we're winning so far. Let's give it 5 minutes. Alright, I think we won. Alright, as indicated by my audible nasal congestion, I got this case thoroughly dedusted, and I got everything reinstalled, so let's see what this thing does. And we're posting! Looks like we got some garbage on the screen. Oh no, that's got issues. Well, let's press Alt F0 to continue. Oh yeah, we're struggling. Okay, let's try the simplest thing first. Different RAM. Alright, once again. Aha! Correction. Okay, well let's try to deox the RAM slots. Alright, once again. Just posts a splash screen and dies. Okay, I cleaned up the edge connectors on the original RAM and put that back in. Let's see what happens now. Okay, there we go. That's further than we got before. Boot. Well, it sounds like we're booting. Yep, it's got Windows XP on it. Sure taking its time to boot. Yeah, I don't think we're getting in. The hard drive sounds perfectly fine, but we're now at 5 minutes at this welcome screen. Okay, well on a hunch I put that sound card back in and set the date and time, and one of those two things did the trick. We are in. Okay, this thing was definitely corporate use. Got some dismissal letters there. Well, obviously it wasn't being used as a cash register, so I wonder what the deal was with that solenoid hanging out the back of it. Maybe it was, and they just never bothered to remove it. Let's see what's on here. Collaborate MD. I sure hope we don't have any HIPAA-protected data on here. Sending a machine to e-waste with HIPAA-protected data on it? How much of a fine is that? Well, clearly they weren't concerned with security. Got a Word document with credentials in it. Lovely. You'd think they'd store it somewhere secure, like on a sticky note under the keyboard. That's a joke, people. And yeah, I can tell by these documents that I blurred out, this thing definitely has HIPAA-protected data on it. And it's triggering my HIPAA environment PTSD. I am long done with that. Let's see what programs this thing has on it. Oh god, Citrix. Oh god, Konica Minolta. If there's one thing I absolutely love about being a DevOps engineer, it's never ever having to deal with printers. Ever. I don't even have one at my house. I won't allow such evil under my own roof. Okay, well all this stuff looks pretty boring. This looks like an all business machine. Let's see what's on C drive. The C drive is shared. What in the... Jeez. I thought it was like the C $ share or something, but no. They actually shared the entire C drive. This is killing me. I know this machine's not domain joined, because it didn't prompt for any credentials. Let's see. And that's a name, so I can't even print it. Let's verify that that's our host name. And it is. Yeah, no domain join here. Alright, well let's see if that floppy drive works. And indeed it does. Awesome. Okay, well let's try the CD drive. Little sticky, also a little dusty. Well, that's definitely a 48-speed CD drive. That thing is running. And here's another strike for the IT people who managed this computer. They did not disable auto run. Tisk tisk. Alright, let's get out of here. You know, I didn't hear any sound. Did we get a sound driver? Okay, it's not even detecting that creative sound card. The onboard sound probably needs to be disabled in the BIOS. Let's switch to that. There we go. That hard drive is just about full. Let's do an error check on it. Alright, looks like we made it, with no errors apparently. Let's see what service pack level we're at. Service pack 2. Okay, well not much else to see on this system except for endless HIPAA violations. Wow, it looks like this machine was being used all the way up to 2012. That is positively terrifying that Windows XP's Service Pack 2 was running on a machine with medical data all the way up to 2012. I think I need to go cry. Alright, let's shut this thing down. I don't think my skin can crawl any more than it already is. Scrub-a-dub-dub. I don't want anything to do with that data. Alright, let's see what can be done about cleaning this thing up. Just got the magic eraser here. Man, that thing's dirty. Okay, well it actually cleaned up really well. I decided to leave the remnants of that COA sticker on there, just until I figure out what to do with it. Might think about trying to reprint it. Alright, well despite the cybersecurity horrors, this machine's perfectly fine. I do wish it had an AGP port though, so I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with this thing as of yet. Let's move on to the next system. Alright, next system is the Presario 2240 with these very funky built-in JBL speakers. Those things immediately caught my attention. Sure can't wait to see how they sound. And the CD-ROM drive keeps creeping open, no matter how many times I push it in. So there might be a perished belt inside there, so I'll have to open that up and check that out. But it does look original to the system, as it's a perfect color match for that floppy drive. It's awfully strange that this thing doesn't have a power button, it just has a sleep button there. And of course 2 volume control buttons. And this thing is filthy. And unfortunately the speaker grills actually have rust on them. That's more than just dirt. Aha! Found the power switch. And it's got a very crude case lock here. I guess you would just stick a regular padlock in there, and that would prevent people from opening the case. And it's got just about everything you need on board, except a NIC. But hey, we got a dial-up modem. Gotta have that. And we got a label on the underside of the machine. Series CM0101. Alright, we are unscrewed, so let's get this thing uncovered. So that floppy drive is already disconnected. And unfortunately we are missing the hard drive. But check out that subwoofer box. That thing's huge. Now I'm even more curious to hear this thing. Now I don't know what kind of CPU this thing has because there's no badges on it. And I did not search the model, so let's clear out these floppy drive and IDE cables. See what it takes to get this ducting out of here. It's just stuck to the power supply. Yeah, it's just held on with adhesive. Oh, check that out. It's got the CPU cache module. Now that's interesting. Well, let's see what kind of CPU that is. Looks like a Pentium. And sure ain't. Got an AMD K6. Let's pull that out of there. And yep, AMD K6 clocked at 200 megahertz. All good on the pins. Just a little bit dusty. Let's get this thing cleaned up. Let's check out that cache module. I've actually never seen one. Interesting. 256K of cache. Let's just get that back in there. And this thing takes just a single stick of DIMM RAM. Let's get that out of there. 16 megabyte stick. Made by Hyundai. or Hyundai if you like. Put that to the side. Alright, let's check out our dial-up modem. And it's a creative dial-up modem. That's definitely something I don't see very often. Creative Modem Blaster. Interesting. And for sound, we got an ESS audio drive, ES1888F, and this big old heatsink next to it must be the audio amplifier chip. And for video, we got an S3 Trio 64 with an unpopulated VRAM expansion socket. And you're not going to believe this. That CMOS battery's still good. That is absolutely a first for all the systems from this haul. And the CD drive is a Compaq original, 20-speed Sanyo, manufactured February 1998. Let's see what it takes to get that thing out of there. Start by disconnecting power and audio. There are no screws on this side. I do see screws on this side, but it's being blocked by this subwoofer. So I've got to figure out how to get that out of there. Might need to pop the faceplate off. Yeah, there's no way around it. Gotta get the faceplate off. Let's hope the clips don't break. Well, that last clip is not easy to get to. There we go. No breakage. And there we go. Looks like we got 4 screws, and that thing's out. Let's get that speaker disconnected. Now, finally, I can get out those drive screws. And yep, perished belt confirmed. Alright, got that drive apart. Now I gotta get this disc tray out of here. Alright, so the belt drives this plastic pulley here, and the motor is way down in there. So I'm gonna have to remove this plastic piece. Let's start with this spring. Now it should be just these 2 screws. Hopefully that gear just lifts out of there, and it does. Okay, now let's try to get this out of here. Alright, now I just gotta find a belt that fits. Can you tell I do this a lot? That might be too small. Yeah. This might be an option, but it is quite thick. No, that's too loose. May just have to go with a thinner belt and stretch it. Okay, that might work. It's got plenty of traction. Let's try it out. Alright, let's feed that tray back in there. Now let's turn it on and see what it does. Okay, that's a good sign. Does it open? Guess not. Let's try with just straight power. None of this IDE nonsense. And it opens. And closes. Alright, that did the trick. Can we do it one more time? Indeed we can. And while I had it off, I went ahead and cleaned up the faceplate. Also cleaned up the top of the drive. It's looking good. Now let's turn our attention to this mess. I want to start by removing these speaker grills if I can, because that's going to make cleaning them up so much easier. And it looks like we can just fold these metal tabs out. Now, can we just push through? There we go. Let's just get that cloth out of there. Ooh, that's dusty. Alright, those actually cleaned up way better than I thought. What I thought was rust was actually some kind of soluble gunk. Still not perfect, but it's absolutely way better than it was. Now let's go ahead and clean up the main character. Alright, that's a lot better. Starting to look like its old self again. Alright, let's show some love to the floppy drive. Got an NEC FD1231T, made in 1998. And it is dusty. So let's get this thing open. Let's just go ahead and remove that floppy door. Being incredibly mindful of that tiny spring. Now let's get that button out of there. Alright, let's get the 30 pounds of dust out of there. You know, I'm kind of amazed how not dusty it is. It seems almost like those giant clumps at the front created like a crude filter. Surprisingly clean. But of course, I'm gonna clean the heads. Yeah, those are pretty clean too. Yeah, just look at the lid. All the dust is in the front. That is too weird. And here's the underside of the power supply. It is so caked up with dust. It's just about plugged every single one of these holes. So I'm definitely taking this thing apart. And here's what it looks like on the inside. Makes me want to sneeze just looking at it. Alright, I got that thing de-dustified. Let's see what it does. Well, that's not good. Let's try one more time. See, it tries to start. Saw the fan move just ever so slightly. 2 hard drives should be more than enough load to start this thing. Let's try one more time. Nothing. And that's not good because that's a very weird form factor. Now there's a possibility that it's waiting for some kind of non-standard signal from the motherboard. This computer doesn't have any power switches on the front. It just has that sleep button. It's either that or we got some defective capacitors on there. Okay, well, I tried a few things, replaced a few suspicious looking caps, but this thing still won't start. And that's too bad because it's definitely a unique form factor that I definitely don't have a replacement for. And I'm out of time for debugging this thing, so I'll pick it up at a later date. Either that or I'll just gut it and replace the circuits with modern internals. Luckily, I traced out the motherboard and it looks like it does indeed take standard AT power, so at least we'll be able to continue on with the testing. Okay, now it's time to pick a hard drive for this thing. I'm going to go with this 8.4GB Western Digital. Now this system would have originally come with a 2.1GB drive, so this is quite a bit larger than what it would have came with, but this is what I have handy, so it'll do for now. Alright, got this thing back together. Had to improvise a temporary CPU fan in the absence of the original power supply. So let's see what this thing does. Alright, we're posting. Got a seek on the floppy drive. Got a DOS boot disk in there. And that floppy drive works. Awesome. And we loaded the CD-ROM driver. Let's see if it actually works. Well, it spins up. And it works. Let's not celebrate too soon. Let's make sure it reads a CDR. And thanks to archive.org, I was able to find an image for the original restore disk. So let's try to get this thing restored. And it does. Now I have no idea how to actually use this restore disk. This might be a bootable CD. Alright, verified we're set to boot from CD-ROM. Let's see if it actually does. And looks like it. Very good. Continue. Sure. Oh, it's gonna make me enter the serial number. Oh, no way. Well, let's try one more time. Maybe I slipped a digit. Well, I guess we're not using that. Unbelievable. Okay, I found a serial number that's supposed to work. Let's try it. Ha! I don't see 2240 on here. Well, let's just go with 2200. See how far that gets us. Do it. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Alright, we made it to the end. Alright, let's get that disk out of there. Restart. Alright, got Windows 95. I gotta go through the setup wizard. Let's be generic. Of course I agree. How could I not? Uh-oh. Now this I don't have. Well, let's see if it takes something generic. Well, that worked. Finish. Alright, time for plug and pray to do its thing. And of course it choked on something. See if we can get through it. Alright, finally. We are in. Oh, I better register my Compaq. Is there really no way to make this go away? Well, I can't believe that real-time clock kept the date correct. And the time is only 8 minutes off. Well, let's just give it a bunch of crap. Is that enough crap for you? Does it really want the hyphen? Oh lord. Boy, they ask for everything. Nothing applies. Continue. Keep going. Okay, I guess that was all pointless. This ain't going away. Alright. Let's see if we got sound. Doesn't look like it. Let's see what we do have. Yeah, it didn't detect that sound card at all. Guess I better start driver hunting. That's probably what this unknown device is. Good old driverguide.com. I can't believe that site's still around. Okay, that was fast. Alright. Will it work? Let's see. Okay, well it's trying to play the startup sound. That's so weird. Whoa, that's so weird. It's only playing the first few milliseconds of each sound. Fascinating. Okay, how about MIDI? Well, MIDI works. Actually, those speakers sound great. I know it probably doesn't come through in the video very well, but they actually have decent bass. And hey, we got the full 8 gigabytes. I thought we were only going to get the first 2 gigabytes. Okay, that's pretty much all I wanted out of this entire restore. Let's shut this thing down. Oh. Can I turn that down? Yes. Okay, it didn't actually shut down. It just went to sleep. That is funny. Alright, let's see how well the top of the case cleans up. Pretty dirty. Let's try the magic eraser on these stubborn spots. Alright, well that cleaned up really well. The few little spots that are left are actually damage to the paint. Well, what a fun little system. And, with the exception of the power supply, fully functional. Those speakers actually sound way better than I was expecting. I actually had it playing a CD out here, and in my opinion sounds just as good if not better than a regular Bluetooth speaker. There's definitely room in my collection for this machine. It is definitely a keeper. I definitely have a great appreciation for Compaqs, almost as much as I have for IBM systems. I've owned a lot of them back in the day, and I'm slowly rebuilding my collection of them. I actually just reacquired a couple of these LTE series laptops. I had both of these laptops back in the 90s, and I am absolutely thrilled to own them again. These laptops need a lot of love, so stay tuned for that. And as always, my sincerest thanks goes out to everyone for their continued support, particularly the fine folks on Patreon. And if this is your first time here, your subscription and pledge will go a long way towards helping me release videos more often and on more in-depth content. I sincerely appreciate your consideration. But that's all for this video. Thanks for watching.